Annihilation is directed by Alex Garland and stars Natalie Portman, Oscar Isaacs, Tessa Thompson, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and Benedict Wong. The movie follows Natalie Portman's character Lena as she goes into this weird force field alien thing called the Shimmer with a group of female scientists to investigate what the Shimmer is and what is inside of it. And the main reason she does this is because her husband went in there beforehand with a group of soldiers and he was the only one to come back. I was really excited for this movie, mainly because Alex Garland's first movie, Ex Machina, was one of my favourite movies of 2015, and it was a movie that I could not stop thinking about, and I was really interested to see what he would do next. And I'm really glad that Annihilation turned out as good as it was, because this is probably one of my favourite movies of the year so far. Everything from a technical aspect in this movie is pretty much perfect, whether it be the gorgeous cinematography or the kind of eerie but also beautiful score. Just everything in this movie from a technical standpoint is pretty much on top form. I really liked how this movie looked. The special effects in this movie, both practical and CGI, are really, really good. They're pretty much some of the best I've seen so far this year. The cinematography I really liked, and I really liked the contrast of how everything outside of the Shimmer looks very grey and dull, but once they are in the Shimmer, it's very bright and colourful, and there's a lot of imagery in the Shimmer that is beautiful, but also quite disturbing at the same time. And this is mostly down to, like I said, the cinematography, the colour palette, and some of the amazing special effects in this movie. There are some practical effects that really, really blew me away in this movie. The acting in this movie is really good as well, from pretty much everyone. Natalie Portman, Tessa Thompson, Jennifer Jason Leigh, they're all on top form, but like I said, the movie is mainly driven by Natalie Portman's character, and she does a great job as the main protagonist of this movie. You really feel for her when it really needs you to feel for her, and you always are on her side. She never feels like the odd one out, and she never has that moment where she feels dull or whether she feels like an antagonist for a few minutes. She always feels like the reasonable person out of all the others in the group. However, besides this movie looking really good, sounding really good, and having some pretty great acting in it, the movie doesn't shy away from raising some pretty big themes and some pretty big questions as well. These are themes and just general things that are subtly woven throughout the movie as it goes on, but only by the end do they become the forefront of the actual movie itself. And like any great sci-fi movie, it does it in the best possible way. There are subtle little hints and certain things that happen in the movie that might not add up on first viewing, but by the time the ending comes round, it may not be 100% clear, but at least you are seeing something that attempts to clarify everything that you were seeing beforehand. But I must stress, Annihilation isn't one of those movies that you will get the first time around. I mean, there will be, you know, people out there that watch it the first time round and will still find enjoyment and find it intriguing on first viewing. I mean, I've only seen this movie once so far, and I absolutely loved it. But it is definitely one of those movies that requires multiple viewings to fully understand all of the little themes and hints and questions that are on show in this movie. And that is a show of great filmmaking if you can really pull that off well. Never have them be in your face, but have them there just bubbling under the surface, just enough for you to acknowledge them on first viewing, but then really deeply analyse them when you watch it again later. And I think Alex Garland did the best possible job he could have done, because all of it felt incredibly effortless whilst I was watching this movie. Also, with considering what I just said, what I'm about to say is probably pretty self-explanatory, but I just thought I might emphasise it right here. And that is, don't go into this movie expecting a full-on action sci-fi film. You won't get that here. Yes, there are some really intense action scenes, and there are even some moments that are a little bit more horror-esque as well, that were actually quite disturbing when they happened and took me off guard. Yes, it does have those intense moments, but for the most part, it is one of those really intricately put together sci-fi movies that really makes you think. And I think we don't get enough of them nowadays. And the fact that Alex Garland has managed to pull it off so seamlessly is just brilliant. Now, I do have a couple of gripes about Annihilation. One is specifically to do with the movie, and the other is to do with something else, but it is still relating to the movie of Annihilation. The nitpick that I have regarding the movie itself is that it takes a while for things to actually start happening in this movie. I mean, I was invested from pretty much the moment the movie started, but it does feel like it takes a while for anything of importance to actually happen, for the actual movie to like kick into gear. I would say it takes about 20 minutes for them to really start talking about the shimmer, and it takes a further 10 more minutes for them to actually go into there. I might be wrong, but that's what it felt like. Once they're in the shimmer, the movie really gets going and really kicks up a notch, but it's just that first little section where it just kind of doesn't do anything that kind of feels like, you know, I just felt in my head like I just want to get to the shimmer, just kind of get on with it. But that's not to say that the beginning wasn't interesting, because I still thought it was quite interesting. I just wanted them to get to the point and get into the meat of the movie a bit quicker. And I'm not saying it's a slow-paced movie, because that's one complaint I've heard a lot of people make. And I personally didn't think the pacing was slow at all. I thought it was perfectly paced, and I thought it worked well for the type of movie. If it had been any faster, I wouldn't have been able to process certain things. But that being said, if it had been any slower, then I would have felt incredibly bored. So I thought it was just the right pace, and I never felt bored or exhausted by the time the movie was over. Now, the other gripe I have to make about Annihilation isn't specifically to do with the movie itself, but it's actually to do with how it's being released. Now, if you're not aware of this, Paramount have basically struck this really stupid deal whereby any future releases that they have that they're not sure about whether they will do well at the box office or not will be released like this. They will be released in cinemas in the US only, but when it goes to be released around the world, it will go straight to Netflix, which is what I had to watch Annihilation on. And I'm thoroughly pissed off, because I was looking forward to seeing this in a cinema, and the fact that I've had to kind of settle with watching it on my TV through Netflix is a bit of a pain in the arse. I mean, I suppose their first attempt at this was the Cloverfield Paradox, and that movie wasn't that good. But that movie wasn't released in cinemas in the US. It was released to Netflix everywhere. And I suppose that's kind of because they realised how bad the movie was. But with Annihilation, especially as the movie went into its third and final act, I was thinking to myself, this would benefit so much more if I was watching it on a big screen. Because that final act of Annihilation, I couldn't fully appreciate when watching it on my TV. I didn't feel the full experience that I think was originally intended from Alex Garland, and it's a shame. Because if I had probably seen this on a bigger screen, it would probably get a higher rating, but because I was stuck watching it on my TV, it just didn't feel the same. And it's a shame, because I was really looking forward to seeing this in the cinema. So yeah, just thought I'd add a little fuck you to Paramount Pictures whilst I could. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to give Annihilation a 9 out of 10. It's a really, really good film that nails all of the technical aspects and pretty much every other aspect in that sense. And it's also a movie that shows that Alex Garland knows exactly what he's doing when it comes to sci-fi. Personally, at this moment in time, I still do prefer Ex Machina over Annihilation, but I feel if I watch Annihilation a few more times, that may change. Either way, both of his movies so far have been really good. So guys, that was my review of Annihilation. If you enjoyed the video, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bye.